Hello, and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach. All right, welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Liz Lemarchand. Thank you so much for joining me, Liz.
Thanks, Amanda. It's great to be here.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you with me. And I always like to start out with a little icebreaker question. Can you share with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Yeah, well, the hobby that brings me the most joy currently is stand-up comedy. It's something that I do as an amateur. I've been doing it for about a year and a half. And at first, it was really something I decided to do for myself to get myself out of my comfort zone, just to expand my growth, to feel more comfortable in the discomfort. And it's taken on kind of relatively large proportions for me because it's really brought so much joy into my life. I was somebody who used to be very serious. I mean, I still, I am still somewhat of a serious person. I'm a go-getter. I'm always, very ambitious at work. And stand-up comedy has helped bring more joy into my life because it's helped me take a look at ordinary situations and find what's funny in them to be able to write material. So,
That is awesome. I love that. I love that you started it because of, just to get out of the comfort zone. Because I can imagine how uncomfortable that would be, right? Like standing in front of people, hoping that they'll laugh, that you're funny, and just, I love, and also what you said around now with the perspective and how much joy it brings you, but with the perspective of what can I find funny in everyday situations. I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds like a lot of fun and also very scary at the same time.
yeah, at first it was really scary. I mean, first to give you a little bit of background too, I live in France. I've lived in France now for 25 years. I mean, I'm fluent in French, but my native language is English. And I decided to take a stand-up comedy class to learn kind of the basics of comedy writing. A lot of people think that stand-up comedy is just you get up on the stage and you're funny, and that is so not how it is. There's a lot of preparation involved, a ton of writing. I love writing. So that was a natural thing I gravitated towards was the writing because it's the process of finding a topic, then making it funny using this techniques, to write jokes. But then you have to test them, and not every audience is the same. And sometimes you've got a joke and it works really well with one audience, and the same joke does not work at all. The first time I got up on stage, I was super nervous. I mean, I was basically shaking. And when I got up, I froze. I froze for a couple of seconds, and the audience just started clapping and, encouraging me. And then once I kind of got it out, was able to do it, it was such an adrenaline rush, and it felt so good to bring joy to other people because they did laugh, that then it became almost like a drug. Like you get addicted to that feeling of getting up and performing, and so then it becomes less scary. But yeah, in the beginning, it is super, super scary. And I'm not somebody who's ever performed on stage before. I didn't do like theater in college or anything like that, so it was completely new. And yeah, definitely got me outside of my comfort zone.
Oh, awesome. And like how much fun you're having with it now. That's so amazing, the growth that you've experienced in that year and a half that you've been doing it. So awesome.
Yeah, now
Um,
I'm doing it in English too. So I do English and French now. And it's interesting because you have to adapt the text. You can't just translate it and expect it to work because there's also culture differences and references, and you have to change them. And so it's fun.
wow. Double languages. That's amazing. So we're here to talk about coaching, and I know as a recipient of coaching, I mean, it sounds like you've, done a lot of work because you've used this technique or starting stand up to get out of your comfort zone. Would you mind sharing a little bit about sort of your transformation or growth that you've received from life coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think coaching is really essential because, while you can do some things on your own, it's just going to take you so much longer to get to your end result. I know that if I didn't have somebody who was helping me to guide me where I wanted to go, giving me the tools and the strategies, helping me kind of turn my chin, see things from a different perspective. I mean, with comedy, especially, there were lots of things I thought were super funny. And then the master comedian coach was like, yeah, but I don't really understand this point, or this is something, could you tell me more about that? Like, what was your idea behind it? Um, and so it's really just a way of being able to, yeah, make it better. Yeah, maybe you could do certain things on your own, but do you want to, or do you not want to fast track to get the results that you're looking for with somebody who really is going to help guide you through the obstacles? I mean, I think I probably would have given up if I had done it on my own at some point, just because it gets hard. It gets hard. And when you have a tribe around you, when you have a coach, when you have a mentor, when you have somebody who's showing you the way, it just makes it so much easier for you to get to that result that you're looking for.
Yeah, I love what you said around it really is the thing that accelerates you because you're right. Like oftentimes we're, trying to accomplish some sort of goal and we sort of go in circles because we're only inside our own heads, right? And we're trying to figure it out on our own. And to be able to find somebody who has, more experience, more expertise to help push you along and really get you there so much faster. You can, it does, it accelerates your results and then you get to enjoy, the results of your work. So I've loved you sharing
Yeah, and
that.
that outside perspective, because you're seeing things from your own eyes, but sometimes an outside perspective makes you realize, like, oh, wait, not everyone sees this the way that I see it. And that can really help you as well, may improve the quality of your results.
Right. And I love what you mentioned also around just the jokes. Like some people, like the different perspectives that people have, like with the same joke, it could do really well with the one audience, but not the other. And it really is. It's everybody has a different perspective on things. And so just to bring it back to the comedy thing, like, yeah, people see it differently. And one thing might be completely hilarious to one person and not funny at all to the another.
Yeah, and what I always do when I get up on stage is I record myself and then I go back, kind of like a professional athlete who's going to watch their performance 100 times to try to be like, okay, a little more of this, a little less of that, right? It's the
Mm,
tweaking. And
mm,
I know some other people that I've worked with who they can't watch their videos, like
mm.
they just get really uncomfortable, even more uncomfortable watching themselves than getting up on stage, which I find interesting. And for me, it's the opposite. I must watch my stuff like 8 billion times because I'm like, okay, they laughed really hard there in this scene. And then another time, I'll have another set and they laughed really hard here. So what if I take these two things and combine them together? And so it's always about tweaking so that you can have, your set that's really rock solid.
Mm, yeah, that's awesome. I did want to talk a little bit more about sort of getting out of your comfort zone because you mentioned like you started this to get out of your comfort zone, to get comfortable. Can you share maybe a little bit about how starting stand up and getting out of your comfort zone in that one area of your life has maybe helped or assisted you in other areas of your life?
It's helped in so many different areas of my life. I have a new mantra now. When anything gets hard, I say, this is hard and I'm capable of doing hard things. Because I've been able to get up on stage in front of audiences of people, 100 people at a time. It's not easy to do that. And I've done it and I didn't die. Sometimes also saying like, what's the worst thing that could happen? I also think that is really helpful to put things in perspective. Like, okay, nobody's going to die if my, comedy isn't making them laugh. I'm not going to die if people don't laugh. But, just knowing that I'm capable of doing hard things really helps me when I've got a work challenge or I have a challenge in a relationship with my daughter or, something comes up that's really unexpected. Life throws so many curveballs at us all the time. And when we have the ability to kind of self coach ourselves with mantras to say, I am capable, it helps build our self-confidence so that we're able to, kind of take a deep breath, not get all panicky, and be able to put things in perspective so that we can take some actions to move forward.
Yeah, I love that perspective that you brought, right? Like where sometimes some big challenge can come up and we're like, oh my gosh, goodness, I'm gonna die. Like, but really that's not really probably factual. So I love that you brought that up with, nobody's gonna die from this. It's just a hard situation and we can overcome those things and grow and learn and become better people from that. So I love
Sure.
I love that you shared that perspective of, when we think of challenges like how big they are, but really, in the grand scheme of things, not really probably going to make us die. Oh, all right. So I love this conversation that we're having so far. And I always like to find out because you've mentioned, getting out of your comfort zone, starting this, but and having worked with a coach. But I'm always fascinated by what brought you to work with a coach in the beginning to begin with, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I think sometimes, people, myself included, it's hard sometimes to reach for help, to seek out help. I'm, somebody who's like an overachiever. And so, many times I kind of plow through things thinking I can do it all on my own. And coaching for me became important when I felt like what I was doing wasn't working, that I wasn't really getting the results that I wanted. I felt stuck, like I kind of was going around in a circle. And it just became something that felt really necessary. I think sometimes people, you get into painful situations. I've been in challenging situations in my relationship, challenging situations at work. And it just felt like, why not get the help that I need? It was a gift that I gave to myself.
Mm,
I think for so long, especially after I gave birth to my first child, I really isolated myself. I felt like I had to do it all. And I really suffered through that. Really, really suffered through that time where I felt that there were so many obligations and so much societal pressure put on me all the time. And, as I've aged, I've realized that there's no reason not to ask for help when I need it. And it's
mm,
important to do that. It's important for myself, my self growth, but it's also important for my family so that I can become the best version of myself, so that I can give more to others because I'm giving that to me so that I can help myself work on me, work on the challenges that I have, work on the things that I need to work on. And I wish that I had done coaching earlier. I think if I had had a coach in my 30s, like who knows where I'd be now. I'm 50 now. But I do think that the results that you get when you have somebody who really can help guide you, are just spectacular. You have so
mm.
many ahas, so many breakthroughs. You can't really give yourself a breakthrough. I mean, I've never, at least myself, had that experience of giving myself a breakthrough. It's always the inspiration that's coming from somebody else that shows
Mhm.
you a new direction to go in that you didn't think about on your own. And that for me is what's priceless about having a coach.
Yeah, I
So
love
that's really
that.
how I do it is, starting with that kind of the pain and suffering of feeling stuck
Mm.
and then realizing that I didn't have to keep myself in that position. I could find solutions.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I love what one piece that you said there about it was a gift to yourself. Because I think a lot of times people don't think to do things for themselves because they're, caught up in the hustle bustle. They're serving their families, they're at work, serving their employer. And to be able to give yourself that gift for you, I don't think people often think about that. Like, really, it is a gift for you. And when you provide that gift to yourself, like you said, then you're able to bring that higher version of yourself to everybody around you and how much of a benefit that is for them. And so it's not selfish to, gift that self to yourself, right?
Yeah, not at all.
It really is. Once you're transformed, it is a gift to everybody. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and people a lot of times make up a lot of excuses of why they, shouldn't do that or couldn't do that. Like, oh, well, it's a lot of money, or oh, it's going to be too much time. And really, the benefits you get from coaching are just have no price tag to them. You create a whole new life for yourself. I can't imagine what my life would be like right now had I not taken a leap of faith and gotten a coach and really decided that I was going to create the life I wanted for myself instead of living a life by default that basically just was because I was swept up in the day-to-day stuff.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you said about just sort of getting swept up with the day-to-day stuff because it's true, right? Like a lot of us are just before receiving the benefits of having worked with a coach, it's sort of like you're going along, you're doing all the things that you're, supposed to be doing. You're working, you've probably got the family and all the busyness that happens with all of those things, right? Like kid activities and like work events and all the things. And then, as you start working with a coach and figuring out, why am I in this hustle and bustle and what life do I truly want? And like you said, designing your life the way you want to live it and how much joy and happiness can come from that once you're actually living a life that you've designed yourself. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about sort of what those those big changes were for you to get out of that day-to-day busy and into this life that you now live today with this, amazing life that you have.
Yeah, I mean, for me, first, it was really about getting clarity about, how am I organizing my time? What am I doing? Because I think sometimes we're so blinded to it because we're just completely unaware because we're moving from one thing to the other and we're not really paying attention to what's happening. We're always kind of projecting and thinking about what's the next thing on the list of to-dos that I have to get done, right? And so I think for me, it was really kind of taking out a piece of paper and writing down like, okay, well, what are all the obligations that I have? What are the things that I'm doing for everybody else? What are the things I'm doing for myself? What are the things that have to get done? Do I have to do these things? Or maybe I could get somebody else to do some of them. And really, um, with my coach, looking at all of the different areas in my life that I wanted to improve, where was my happiness and where were things that I, potentially could stop doing or do differently. Um, I think all of that, my coach was able to really help me to be able to look almost under a microscope and see all of the kind of holes in my story about where, I was saying I can't do this or yeah, no, that wouldn't work. And, questioning it and then reflecting upon it to be able then to be purposeful in my choices.
I love what you said about your coach sort of like really almost challenging you, right? On those things that you're like, well, I have to do this, but then, having that challenge of, well, is that really true? I love that role of the coach of sort of challenging because like you said, we have these stories in our heads around what we should be doing. And when you have that challenge of, is that really what you want to be doing versus what you think you should be doing? That's a distinction that I think isn't always in people's awareness.
Right. Right. And what I love about coaching is that line of questioning, to really then get your thought processes, your the wheels turning in your mind of different possibilities. Well, I've always done this like this, and I've never really questioned that, but maybe I should question it, and maybe I could find a better way of doing it so that I'm not so stressed or, that it isn't so time consuming. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I love how you sort of, as you worked with your coach, really putting your life under that microscope, and really digging into the details. Because I think unless you go into those details, it really is just sort of like this big, huge jumble of things that you've got on your plate and really drilling down into those, like every little thing and every little detail, how you're spending your time and what it is and why it's important or why it's not really important to do. So I love that process that you described. It's a great way to really understand and get to design the life that you've designed for yourself today.
Yeah, and it helps really break those false beliefs that we're all holding on to without even realizing that we have them. For a long time too, I think sometimes we come at things like, oh, I couldn't do that. I can't do that. And for me now, I don't even say I can't. I say, how can I? And do I want to? Is this something that really I want to do or not? Sometimes we say yes to things because we're pleasing people, and it's not something we really want to do. And the boomerang of that is never positive. So, if we can sit down and really decide for ourselves, like, is this something that brings me joy? Is this something that I want to do for myself or for others or not? It helps us just create a better quality of life.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that distinction of, are you doing it because you really want to do it? That's something that's going to bring you joy versus, am I doing it because I'm pleasing someone else because I feel like I should or have to do it? That's always something that, like you said, has a negative boomerang when you're doing something that you truly don't want to be doing and you think you're doing it just to, make someone else happy. So I think that's really important for people to understand because I think a lot of times people don't even realize what they're doing when they're doing something like pleasing someone else, right? They have no idea
Yeah.
of what the consequences of that are.
Yeah, and then living in the present moment too, more than thinking about like ruminating things in the past or, thinking about what I have to do in the future. Stand-up comedy is really great for that too, because if you are not present in the moment when you're on stage, your performance is going to be terrible. Um, and you'll end up forgetting your text. Um, if you're too much in your head and you're not with the audience,
Mm,
first of all, they disconnect from what you're seeing. And if you are just talking, but you're thinking about something else, you're like, wait a minute, where am I? Like in my text, in like, where am I? That happened to me one time where I was on stage and it happened only for a second. We're so used to doing multiple things at one time, like, oh, I'm on this work conference call and I'm looking on social media at the same time, or I'm checking my email, which is terrible. And so it's like we're too dispersed and we're not really focused on one thing at a time. And I think as well, like coaching also helps you like really realize like, okay, what are the steps? And so you have to be really present to each one of the, and not try to do everything at one time or skip 8 steps. And think that you can like fast, get to the end, right? Um, but it's true, I think that very, very often these days, we're not fully living in the present moment.
mm,
And that's
yeah.
something that's just so important for us to be able to get back into the now, what's happening now, and who do I want to be right now?
I love that. I love that focus of being present in the now. And I love the example that you provided about connecting with the audience, like being present with your audience and connecting with them. Because I think not just in stand-up comedy, but like with people, when you're talking to people, like people can
Yeah,
tell when
yeah,
you're
they can.
distracted, right? And to have that connection with who you're speaking to, it really does, create a better relationship that you're not distracted and thinking of something else and you're trying to have or somebody's trying to have a conversation with you and they're seeing that lack of focus on them that probably you're not
Yeah,
listening or maybe you're not and that affects that relationship, right, when you're not present in the moment and focused on what they're saying.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see how that would definitely affect your audience if you're trying to make them laugh or hoping that they'll laugh and not being there and connecting with them. So I can see how that might
Yeah,
impact that.
absolutely. And I work a lot in sales, and it's true too, whether it be a face-to-face meeting or it's a virtual meeting or just a phone call. Like you said, people can tell when you're not really paying attention, and you can't build rapport with somebody if you're only kind of half listening to what they're saying. That connection is completely broken. So taking time to intentionally practice that, because I think as a society, we've gotten really bad at it. So intentionally practicing that, I think, really helps to be able to center ourselves and build the rapport that we're looking to build with other
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, I think what you said about that being harder now, and I think because you mentioned, being on Zoom calls and things like that, I think it's super easy to get distracted because you're right. Like you could be looking at your phone
Yeah,
down here while you're on a call and not really focusing on them. It's so easy to,
especially
find
if the
distraction.
camera's off.
Right.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this has been such an awesome and amazing conversation. I just wanted to open it up for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience or talk about today as we wrap up today?
Sure. Well, first, I would absolutely love if anyone is encouraged to go onto Instagram and follow me at Liz Lemarchand. Obviously, we as comedians need to have a strong following in order to get gigs. So I would very much appreciate anyone who is inclined to follow me on Instagram. Um, if you come to France, you could come to one of my shows. I'm always, posting on Instagram the shows that I do have. And otherwise, no, I mean, if you're hesitant about coaching, first I also I do think that many times we think like, oh, if I make this decision, it's for life. It doesn't have to be for life. You don't have to have a coach for life. You can have a coach just for a very specific period of time because you need to get through something difficult or you want to accomplish, a project or, something of that nature. Um, and I think that if anyone is hesitant to doing it, maybe look at, where does that hesitation come from? Where are the false beliefs around that? And then asking the question, how can I make this work for myself so that I can catapult myself into the next level? So yeah, that's all I want to add.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will ask you for just your little, I guess, your Instagram handle or the link, and I can put that in the
Yeah,
show notes so people can easily find you
for
and
sure.
follow you. And I'm excited to, if I were in France, I would come to your show because I mean, it sounds amazing. And and so, and it sounds like you do it in English too. So I would be able to
Yep.
attend and understand because my French is like I'm not super great. Awesome. So thank you so much again, Liz, for being with me today.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much,
awesome
Amanda.
having you. Yeah, thank you so much. I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.